Dusk was falling on the March 13, 1940. In London's Caxton Hall, a meeting of the Royal Central Asian Society and the East India Association was in progress. Among the attendees was an Indian man named Udham Singh. As the conference drew to an end, Singh pulled out a revolver from his coat and rapidly fired 2 shots at one of the British speakers, Michael Francis O'Dwyer, the former governor of Punjab who had supported the JALLIANWALA BAGH massacre. Today is the day, July 31st, when the brave Indian hero, a true patriot, Udham Singh was executed. Udham Singh was born on December 26, 1899 at the village of Sunam in Punjab, Sangrur district. Having lost his parents at an early age, he and his elder brother were taken in by an orphanage in Amritsar. At that time, Punjab was witnessing intense political turmoil, and Singh grew up observing the changes taking place around him. The year was 1919, and popular resentment against the British had been building up in Punjab. It was basically due to the ruthless recruitment of soldiers as well as forced contributions to the fund for World War I. In addition to this, the colonial government passed what became known as the Rowlatt Act, an act which essentially extended and strengthened repressive wartime measures. Mahatma Gandhi called for a countrywide hartal to protest against the Rowlatt Act and received a tremendous response from the people of Punjab. The British administration in Amritsar, handled by Lieutenant Governor Michael O'Dwyer, panicked. On April 10, 1919, it arrested a number of local leaders like Satyapal and Saifuddin Kichli. The arrests were met by widespread anger and discontent among the people of Punjab, with Amritsar erupting into violent riots between the civilians and the British troops. To restore the order, the Punjab governor handed the command of several dozen troops to Brigadier General Reginald Edward Harry Dyer. Dyer's first steps were indiscriminately arresting people and banning gatherings. On April 13, 1919, a crowd of more than 10,000 unnamed men, women and children gathered at Amritsar's Jallianwala Bagh, an open ground enclosed by walls on all sides and with only one exit. It was the day of Baisakhi festival, and many of the thousands of people who gathered at the ground had come from far off villages to attend fairs in Amritsar and were unaware of Dyer's ban order. Singh and his friends from the orphanage were at Jallianwala Bagh on the fateful day and were given the responsibility of serving water to the thirsty crowd. They were doing so when Dyer arrived. His troops sealed off the only exit and opened fire on the crowd without any warning. As the unarmed people tried to escape the bullets by climbing the walls or jumping into a well, the soldiers kept firing till they ran out of ammunition. It is not certain how many died in the horrific bloodbath, but according to official estimates, around 400 people were killed and more than 1,200 wounded. However, unofficial records put the tally much higher. Singh, 20 years old at that time, was deeply scarred by the event and soon got involved in the armed resistance that was unfolding in and outside India. In the early 1920s, he traveled to East Africa, where he worked as a laborer for a while before making his way back to the US. It was here in San Francisco that he first came in contact with the members of the GHADAR party, a revolutionary movement organized by immigrant Punjabi Sikhs to secure India's independence from the British. For the next few years, he traveled across America to secure support for the movement, using several aliases such as Udham Singh, Shaheed Singh and even Frank Brazil. In 1927, he made his way back to Punjab on the orders of Bhagat Singh by working as a carpenter on a ship traveling to India. The same year, he was arrested for possession of illegal arms and for running the GHADAR party radical publication GHADAR the Gunj. He was jailed for 4 years till 1931. During this period, Brigadier General Dyer died after suffering a series of strokes, while Bhagat Singh, Rajguru and Sukhdev, fellow revolutionaries whom Singh deeply admired, were hanged for their involvement in the Lahore conspiracy case. Singh was released in 1931 but remained under constant surveillance of the British police due to his close links with Bhagat Singh's Hindustan Socialist Republican Association. He made his way to Kashmir, where he used an alias to evade police and escape to Germany. Singh finally reached England in 1933 with the aim of assassinating Michael O'Dwyer, who he held responsible for the brutal JALLIANWALA BAGH massacre. O'Dwyer had even called the massacre a correct action. In London, he fell in with socialist groups while working as a carpenter, motor mechanic and signboard painter. Interestingly, he also worked as an extra in two Alexander Korda movies, Elephant Boy, which was released in 1937, and The Forefathers, which was released in 1939. However, Singh never forgot the reason he had come to England for. He knew the time had come to achieve his goal when he learned that Michael O'Dwyer was scheduled to speak at a meeting in the London's Caxton Hall on March 13, 1940. On the day of the conference, Singh hid a revolver in his overcoat, sneaked into the Caxton Hall and shot O'Dwyer twice as he moved from the platform after the meeting concluded. He did not try to flee or resist arrest and was immediately taken into custody. During his trial, Udham Singh gave his name as Mohammad Singh Azad, which was tattooed on his arm as a symbol that all religions in India were united in their opposition against the British rule. Convicted and sentenced to death, Singh was hanged on July 31, 1940 at London's Pentonville prison and buried within the prison grounds. In 1974, the Singh's remains were exhumed and repatriated to India before being cremated at his birthplace, Sunam village in Punjab. His ashes were then scattered in the Ruthless River, the same river in which the ashes of Bhagat Singh, Rajguru and Sukhdev had been scattered. A brave heart who sacrificed his life to avenge his motherland, Udham Singh's legend has only grown with time. Interestingly, Singh has also been mentioned in Salman Rushdie's novel Shalimar the Crow as a character of Sanib Azman. In the novel says, "For every O'Dwyer there is a Shaheed Udham Singh, and for every Trotsky a Martyrdom awaits."